Hello everybody, Glitch Reaper here. I'm back for another mob battle, and I'm taking a slight break from Apis right now, for and some other things for some various reasons, so I was thinking maybe a more magical kind of break. So, I'm going to be doing kind of one I've been thinking of for a while. I'm going to have the Grand Wizzrobe going against the various Thaumcraft bosses. Because I was thinking, well, let's see whose bosses are more magical between the two. So, yeah. Uh, so, I'm going to have going pretty much against the full force. Although I'm debating whether or not to have the Tentacle last, because it has had an issue against ranged bosses, so I don't think it's going to fare too well. But still, it has immense melee range. So, melee, lips, we talked about this, has immense melee damage, so every time the Grand Wizzrobe gets close, it's probably going to get seriously squished. So, yeah, I mean, there's a good chance. But anyhow, my lips are having a very bad day today, even more so than normal. But, yeah, let's do this. So, we know the Grand Wizzrobe, but I'm also going to make sure to have the other thing around first, because the Grand Wizzrobe likes to kind of roam around. So it's best to click it off kind of... Well, when he sinks into the ground, it's a little tricky. There you go. Ugh. Okay. Oh, and you are coming up close. In that case, have a wind blast. Now, a really cool thing about all the Thaumcraft bosses is because they have special names, you'll also get whatever death message you would normally whenever they're defeated. So that also means that whenever he got hit with the electrical paralysis. That's always a bit wiggy, because they always just kind of bounce around a bit during that state. But yeah, as I was saying, it'll show what kind of death they just experienced from the Grand Wizzrobe, so you might see a variety of death messages, depending on which spell he finishes with, because he does have 4 different elements. And in that case, he was hit with the wind spell, so he was officially blown away. Yeah, case in point, it seems the Crimson Praetor has an awfully hard time hitting him at all, and I thought I'd gotten rid of that effect. But apparently, no. Not yet. Anyhow, Eldritch Construct. I had to look around for him. As I said, he likes to wander around. He teleports around a lot, so... But if he actually has aggro on something, he'll stay close to it. Now, this thing will hit him because it does have an Iron Golem-like attack. But... And that one dealt some serious damage. He got hit for like 32. And of course, each one has a different attribute between his primary spells. Fire, of course, sets things on fire. Ice causes slowness. His electrical attack does that crazy bobbing paralysis thing. Yeah, like that. And ice... Well, I said ice. Sorry, wrong one. I meant to go in order to wind, but if he hits with wind, it just has massively increased knockback. And I think they have different attack strengths, because ice seems to deal more damage overall. I mean, after all, it's kind of like getting hit by a giant ball of ice. So, yeah. Oh, paralyzed a couple times in a row. He is not looking good right now. Ooh, one more hit and he's just wiped out. Or, is he? He has his rejuvenation phase. But that doesn't last too terribly long. And remember, Grand Wizzrobe also has shields. They're just dropped whenever he's attacking. So he's taking some serious damage, but the Grand Wizzrobe will ignore anything whenever he's not prepping a spell. That time, of course, he was. And the Eldritch Construct has a lot of ranged attacks of its own once it gets into its rage mode here. Or overdrive mode, I guess you could say, or desperation mode. Because then then it drops its helmet and starts firing from the one eye that it has. It's a bit of a Cyclops robot. Oh, he put back on his shield just in the nick of time a moment ago. That was good timing for the Grand Wizzrobe. But the Eldritch construct is just about blasted. Ooh, he teleported out of the way. He almost deflected that whole swarm of shots. And now it says he was zapped. So you can see what happens whenever he finishes off with an electrical attack. Now, he was dealt some serious damage, almost 90 points out of 300. So he's not really, like, super down, but you could tell that the Eldritch construct kind of had a bit more oomph. So now let's go with, warded version. This could be interesting. I may or may not need to have a rematch, because warded tends to be a little faster on the warding. That's kind of part of how it works. On the other hand, he will still get seriously struck by this. But until his shield goes down, then he just won't take damage to his real health. And he'll eventually regenerate that shield. The warded version does it more so, and I think he has a heavier shield in the first place, and heavier whenever it regenerates. So he's just much bigger on that shield. Now, his attacks do kind of do some withering. So that means that because the Grand Wizzrobe can take damage whenever his shield is up, as long as it's from a condition he's suffering from already, then he will be suffering additional damage during this fight. Especially since the warded here has some serious withering on his side. He has some other attacks too, but that's just one that just adds up more over time. Yagkasha, the warded. But yeah, Eldritch wardens always have some warding on them. It's just this one is way more so. So the question is, how much of his shielding does he already have depleted? Now, he will suffer some of the side effects, and the warding will be worn down from environmental damage or from other sources that aren't direct hits, like it can be from conditions. So if he's on fire, he will take gradual damage to his shield that way. Like that. Note that it also tweaks every time he's on a damage cycle from fire. He has so much extra shields in this mode. So this could be the version that can take on the Grand Wizzrobe, like only the warded. His shields are down now. He is going nuts with that electrical attack. He does have some regen, but it's kind of slow. And the amount of damage the Grand Wizzrobe does usually outpaces it. Although if he goes back into a shield state heavier because of this, that might not be quite the case. So he might need an immediate rematch afterwards in something else. Because this champion form is just something that usually the player would have to deal with special. Although he's taking some damage now. So I think he regened his shield, but then had it like almost immediately taken out. Because it doesn't come back as strong as it was in the first place. Even whenever he's this super warded version. Yeah, he's taking a pummeling from the Grand Wizzrobe, even in this state. So even as a special champion form that's warded, which is the most defensive and kind of what he needs the most against the Grand Wizzrobe to take it out, I don't think he stands a chance either way. Well, let me check out the Grand Wizzrobe's health. He's down by more than half. Of course, the same can be said here. I'm not sure who's down most proportionally. I'd say he's probably taking more the brunt of it. If I'm looking at their boss bars for comparison. But, yikes, you just slammed him on that one. And he was incinerated. So apparently he has a custom message for fire. But he is down by more than half, so that version was so far like the exact situation that seems to have done the best against the Grand Wizzrobe out of the Thaumcraft bosses. So, again, Eldritch Wardens are always warded, and they will always be able to regenerate their shields eventually, but that one just specializes in it. So, he took on the downright toughest version and still pummeled through. So, Grand Wizzrobe, you are the wizard. Now, let's have a Tentacle show up. And again, these things have that weird thing where they kind of randomly regen and damage themselves. I'm still not sure which is faster. I think they damage themselves faster than they regen. Overall, but it's kind of a little wild to see. Still, only whenever he's close and unleashing a spell will he take damage because of not only his shield, but this is mostly a melee boss. But, man, do they ever deal damage. Now, they can do this big slam thing where they hit a line. And it does have a certain amount of reach. Like, whenever he flails like that, he can kind of smack along a line. Let's see if he manages to... Okay, he hit the Grand Wizzrobe with that extra reach. So he's a melee boss with reach is the best way to describe it. Ooh, heavy zappage. And the roasting begins. And now he was frozen. So he got hit with pretty good variety there. The Grand Wizzrobe took not quite 20 points of damage. Yeah, that boss is really heavily based on how lucky it is with the Grand Wizzrobe closing in. So that's a thing. Now, the Crimson Portal, remember, in later versions, this version, the boss version, has been renamed the Greater Crimson Portal, since now there's lesser ones that show up in your world once in a while. So that's kind of a thing that's changed over time with Thaumcraft. So I just need to make sure that we have a BAM storm. And when you're in creative, the announcer does not do it. So I'm sorry we're not going to be able to hear your awesome voice, Mr. Gooderness, but this is just one of those circumstances where it's just not going to happen. So, sorry about that. Yeah, BAM storm always causes an actual storm. So now let's upset the entire Crimson Cult. Yeah, that healing it does seems to be primarily the first time it's attacked. Right now he's focusing his attacks on the Greater Crimson Portal. But, I mean, he has a whole lot of minions to deal with. Now it's going to float up, and he's going to start focusing on them. Now, it will deal damage to itself over time. Yeah, you just saw it. Specifically, usually when it summons. Although it will deal damage to itself over time anyhow, because it's not really meant to be a part of the world like this. It's just meant to be kind of like a semi-living rift as a method of travel for the Crimson Cult. So technically, this is more a fight against the Crimson Cult overall. And we have a Grim Crimson Praetor showing up here. And yeah, again, it will summon Praetors. So, that little thing I did with the Praetor before is kind of a prelude fight. Now, if he clears all of them, I will retarget him towards that if it's still around. If it's not at that time, then obviously... Is that guy airwalking? Well, he was. I did see that, right? What? That guy was airwalking. Maybe he had the Thaumic harness thing on? I mean, I don't think of them as having random Thaumic equipment like that, but, maybe? Because he was, like, just floating up there alongside the portal, and they were just having a time of it. Now, also note that, that the Grand Wizzrobe's attacks do swipe an area, so he can hit more than one at a time. And whatever damage and effects it has will affect like an area of them at once. So he can just kind of swat them. Although he is taking a lot of damage because they are firing on him like crazy. Oh, they've almost got him this time. So he has been viciously attacked. But will it be enough? And, okay, there's still that Praetor around here somewhere. Oh, did he just walk? No. Is that him? Yeah, that's the Praetor. He just walked off. Let all the minions take care of it. Like, seriously. It's like, nope, you take care of this. I'm not dealing here. I know what happened before. And he just walks over that way, and the rest, it's the job of the entire rest of the cult to pull it off. Admittedly, they did pull it off. So apparently you can overwhelm one. However, this guy will time himself out. But again, whenever I factor in minions, that means that, the Crimson Cult will have won overall. So, yeah, they can in fact overwhelm a Grand Wizzrobe with like the entire collective of the Crimson Cult. Although to be perfectly fair, it took it down nearly halfway to do so, but it got the job done. So they can do it. I have a feeling that can go the other way sometimes, but you never know. I mean, they have numbers. I mean, they are a legion, so they'd have to get like seriously unlucky with just how perfectly the setup allows it, because these obstacles can in fact block the Grand Wizzrobe shots. So if they're in the right locations, then they might be able to use it for cover. So this is when the terrain factors in. So overall, they probably have the overall advantage. So yeah, Crimson Cult is like collectively, starting with the Greater Crimson Portal. Remember, that's an official renaming of it. Is the Greater Crimson Portal can take them down. And again, that Praetor just likes to walk off. There you are. Like seriously. He who holds the Grand Warp Sword of the cult just walked away. Despite the fact that you probably could have done okay if you'd actually started shooting at him. But maybe. I mean, again, the last guy got perfected by him. So that was a very interesting turn. So the Crimson Cult can triumph over a Grand Wizzrobe, but so far nothing else can. I mean, that was like the toughest version of the Eldritch Warden, and it still failed. It still got wrecked in the end. Although, admittedly, it knocked him down pretty far, but it still didn't take him out. So, and that was like, I think it's their best shot to do so. So, in that case, the only thing that might take down a Grand Wizzrobe is the entire Crimson Cult collectively. And I don't know what the odds were of that, but I have seen it go the other way before in testing. So that is interesting. That really surprised me. They can do it. And admittedly, when you really look at how many of them there were, I'd say they have the advantage. Although it may have to do with the RNG of the Crimson Portal throwing them out, because it kind of does a random amount of Crimson Knights and Crimson Clerics. And the Clerics are the ones with the ranged attacks that can actually zero in on the Grand Wizzrobe while it's flying around. So I'd say it depends on just how angry the Greater Crimson Portal really is in terms of its spawns. But that was a pretty interesting fight. So I'll be logging off for now. Hope to hear from y'all later. And remember, goodbye for now, and there will be more mob battles.